All right, good morning, everyone, and good evening for those around the globe. We feel incredibly fortunate to be here today to host Dr. Muhammad Yunus and Mr. Darrin Williams. My name is Meredith, and I'll be one of your hosts today. And I wanted to start off with, though many of us are Zoom experts in these times, we do recommend that you navigate to the view at the top of your screen and select speaker view, as opposed to the gallery view for the most seamless event experience given the size of our audience. If you need to contact your event host, please use the chat feature. During today's conversation series, you'll first hear from Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, followed by Darrin Williams, CEO of Southern Bancorp. Many members of the audience submitted questions, and we regret that our limited time together means that there are many we will not get to, but we feel very fortunate to pose a few to these two men. Professor Muhammad Yunus is a recipient of the 2006 Nobel Peace Prize and is internationally recognized for his work in poverty alleviation. He is the founder of Grameen Bank, the largest microfinance institution in the world. Darrin Williams is a banker, securities and consumer protection attorney, former legislator, and passionate advocate for financial inclusion. He serves as the CEO of Southern Bancorp, one of the country's oldest, largest, and leading community development financial institutions, which operates largely in the Arkansas, Mississippi Delta, one of the nation's most impoverished communities. Dr. Yunus is a passionate advocate of social business. Grameen Bank was the impetus for the global microfinance movement, influencing hundreds of banks across the globe, including Southern Bancorp here in Arkansas, where in 1986, upon the invitation of Governor Bill Clinton, Dr. Yunus traveled to the state to advise the founders. In this vein, the pairing of these two speakers perfectly fits the Arkansas Global Changemakers initiative, which asks what we can learn from the lessons of global partners to address challenges we face here at home. I'd now like to introduce Dr. Alan Elstrand, Associate Dean for Programs and Research at the Sam Walton College of Business, to welcome our guests.
Thank you, Meredith, and a very warm welcome and good morning to everyone. On behalf of the Walton College and the University of Arkansas, we are deeply honored to host two speakers of such magnitude. As we humbly listen with great admiration for the work they do, I know that I am not alone when I share that Professor Yunus is someone whom I have revered and respected through my years as a business professor, as well as a former student. His pioneering work in microfinance has influenced countless institutions around the world, including the impressive way that Mr. Williams applied his business model to Southern Bancorp here in Arkansas. Dr. Yunus, you are an inspiration to all of us. As a land-grant public institution, our university strives to make a positive impact on the state and to expose our students to the globalized world. As a business college, we particularly believe in the power of social business organizations to address societal changes. Our speakers today are beacons for positive change and how we can do better to affect this change. We welcome our speakers and to all who have joined us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Alan. We appreciate that. I'll now introduce you to our moderators, the co-founders of Arkansas Global Changemakers. Dr. Lawrence Hare is an associate professor of history and director of the International and Global Studies program. And Dr. Rogelio Garcia Contreras is director of social innovation at the Walton College of Business and is a faculty member in the Department of Strategy, Entrepreneurship, and Venture Innovation. Drs. Hare and Contreras will moderate the discussion with today's speakers. I'll now turn it over to Rogelio.
Thank you so much, Meredith. Dr. Yunus, welcome. Welcome to the University of Arkansas. It is a privilege to have you here with us today. We are going to start our conversation acknowledging that we are humbled by your decision to accept our invitation. I think I speak for everyone present in this call when I say I feel extremely fortunate to have the opportunity to share this moment with you. Mr. Williams, thank you as well for accepting our invitation. We are honored you are part of this conversation. And thanks to our audience for connecting this morning, our students, our faculty, our community partners here in America and around the world. This is the first event of what we expect to be an inclusive, valuable, and ever-enriching conversation series on all things related to social innovation and the procurement of social impact. The series is part of the Arkansas Global Changemakers initiative in partnership with the University of Arkansas Graduate Net Impact chapter. Arkansas Global Changemakers is a collaboration between the Social Innovation Initiative of the Walton College of Business and the International and Global Studies program of the Fulbright College of Arts and Sciences. Through an innovative list of courses, study abroad initiatives, research, extracurricular opportunities, as well as community engagement events, such as this one, we foster social capital formation and directly engage in the consolidation of the social business movement in our region. Inspired by our motto, learning globally to act locally, the initiative brings communities together, enhancing collaboration around the development of local solutions to pressing social challenges. At Arkansas Global Changemakers, we believe there is much to be learned from the experience and success of social innovation initiatives in other parts of the world, and the process through which these initiatives can inform local efforts to tackle similar problems. The initiative facilitates multidisciplinary, institutional, and cross-sector collaborations through an international network of institutions and community partners. One of these organizations is precisely the Yunus Center. We are proud to announce Arkansas Global Changemakers is developing a collaboration with the Yunus Social Business Center to enhance our students' academic and service learning experience and help us fulfill our mission to promote social innovation, global awareness, social business formation, and intercultural competency. We are very excited about the partnership, and we are thrilled about today's conversation. Dr. Lawrence Hare will moderate the session with Professor Yunus. However, before we start, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the tremendous collaboration and team effort that made this event possible. To everyone that participated in the coordination and organization of this event, thank you. I leave you now with my dear colleague and fellow Arkansas Global Changemakers co-founder, Dr. Lawrence Hare. Lawrence.
Thank you, Rogelio, and thank you, Dr. Yunus, for joining us. To our colleagues in the United States, good morning, and to you and your colleagues in Bangladesh, good evening. We'll be reflecting today on more than 4 decades of transformative work in the fields of economics and finance, and applications that have literally lifted millions out of poverty around the world. And so we have been excited for a long time to organize an event and welcome you to Arkansas. But I must remind everyone, of course, that this is not your first time to Arkansas, either physically or virtually. And I wondered, as an opening question, if you wouldn't mind telling a little bit about how you came to be connected with the Clintons and how you came to be here doing your work in the United States, in the state of Arkansas.
Well, thank you. First of all, I want to say that I'm so grateful to you for inviting me to this event at Arkansas, because Arkansas has become an integral part of my life. It's not just a visit. I've been very intensely involved with Arkansas, and because of my work there, and it began, as you mentioned, about Bill Clinton. He became governor, very young governor at that time. Somehow he came to know about Grameen Bank through a common friend, and he invited me to come to Arkansas, start Grameen Bank there. So I said, well, when I come to the USA, I'll definitely visit. I didn't want to rush right away. So I said, I will come. And I did come and visited him in Arkansas. And I went to Little Rock, of course, meeting him, his staff, and so on. The idea came that he wants to create a Grameen Bank there. And that in part was played by South Shore Bank, Ron Grzelski, if you remember him. Bill Clinton, as governor, invited him to bring the work of South Shore Bank in Chicago to Arkansas. So he worked with the Arkadelphia, Bank of Arkadelphia. So that became a part of the South Shore Bank. He bought a major share of the bank. So he said, we can work through this to create Grameen Bank. So that's what the program, and I came to Arkansas, started going visiting. I said, I must see what it is because I work in Bangladesh, which is a completely different kind of country. Everybody said it's America, it will never work. I want to see, do you have poor people? So they said, yeah, we have lots of poor people, and explained all that. Then they show me poor people who are running a gas station, who are radio station. I said, no, these are not poor people I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who have nothing, absolutely nothing to do, nothing for their life, no livelihood. And they couldn't find a way to do that. I said, do you have a welfare program? Do you have a list of the people who receive welfare? They said, of course, we have lots of people on welfare list. I said, show me the list and take me to those people. And my journey began. And I started seeing people as how terrible the situation was at that time. And people lost their income because some garment factory moved away. They have no job anymore. They're sitting there with the welfare benefits and so on and so forth. So I started talking to them. That took me to many places that I went from, of course, Arkadelphia is one I had to go. And Pine Bluff I had to go because Pine Bluff became our headquarters for our program. So I spent a lot of time in Pine Bluff and Fayetteville and many tiny little places with 500 people, with 1,000 people living there and so on. So I saw the reality of the situation. I said it will work wonderfully because I negotiated with them, talked to them how to do that. And always Ron Brzezinski from South Shore Bank and the staff of Bill Clinton, always with there. Hillary Clinton was very much interested in it. Finally, a program was created called Good Faith Fund. So that was the beginning of our work in there. And they were very proud of the program, and Bank of Arkadelphia was financing it, and we continue to do that. So that was the beginning of Grameen Bank coming out of Bangladesh, going not only to another country, but the richest country in the world. So we said, look, the banks don't care for those people, so we have to create an alternative bank. That's what the Grameen Bank is. And we created the alternative bank. And they were so impressed. South Shore Bank was so impressed by what they were doing in Philadelphia and Pine Bluff and all other little places that we were working. They wanted to bring it to Chicago. So another program began in Chicago, in the Chicago neighborhoods and so on, poor neighborhoods. So this is what my first experiences. It's so deeply rooted in my experience that I see this is part of my life that I would like to go back and visit. I'm very happy that your university has created the Yunus Social Business Center. I'm happy that we could be present there in some form and work there in the same way that we have done, beginning was done. Later on, of course, Bill Clinton wanted to become president and he ran for it and he kept saying that if I'm elected president, I'll replicate the experience in Arkansas in all over the United States and create Grameen program all over the United States. And the journalists want to chase him. What is this Grameen Bank? What do you do? What does it mean? How do you bring something in Bangladesh, the poorest country in the world, some experience, the poorest country in the world, to come to the richest country in the world? So they kind of thought this is a crazy idea that he's promoting. So he had to always defend it and continue repeating what I have been doing. He has to mention my name. So my name became integrated in the whole campaign, election campaign and so on. So that is a long history, and the relationship that was built with Bill Clinton and the family remained ever since very close, and many other things happened because of that. Thank you.
Well, yes, thank you. Certainly the idea that you brought to Arkansas has been an inspiration for the Arkansas Global Changemakers initiative. Like you, we believe that these exchanges across national and cultural boundaries can be very fruitful in approaching these global challenges we face today from a local or regional perspective. And with that in mind, we have asked a few of our students and colleagues to pose a few questions to you, if you don't mind. And I'd like to start with a question looking at the past and sort of looking at the future at the same time from one of our students in the Net Impact program, Gurshagun Kandola. And if I can ask her to come into the spotlight, as it were, and to pose her question.
Okay.
Hello, Dr. Yunus.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to meet you here virtually. So my question is that, of course, when you started Grameen Bank back in 1983, right, the world was a different place then. And that's not just true for Bangladesh, but the entire world, including developing and developed countries. How do you think, given the current uncertain times, especially because of COVID-19 pandemic, how do the principles of microfinance apply now? And do they have to be modified, adapted to kind of suit the current situation? And how can that be used in fact to create a more just and equitable world today?
Thank you. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that the world is a very different place than what it used to be when I started. I was studying in Bangladesh with the Grameen Bank, microcredit, back in 1976 and on. Before that, of course, I was in, again, your neighboring state in Tennessee. I was in Nashville, Tennessee. I was studying at Vanderbilt University and left Vanderbilt University after I did my PhD and taught in Tennessee State University in Murfreesboro, Middle Tennessee State University in Murfreesboro for 3 years, then came back in 1971. So that's the time that we're talking about and comparing this today for many years. When you say it's a different, some people may think we are talking about much better world than what it used to be. But that's not how I heard it. I thought it's a much worse world than what it used to be. Because at that time, global warming was not as bad as this, what we have right now. And now we are on notice. The world has got a notice that you don't have much time left before you get yourself extinct on this planet. Human beings get extinct. So today, human beings are the most endangered species on this planet. In 1971, it was not when I came back. It was still very happy world in that sense of global warming. It's not going to end. We have lots of poverty at that time, lots of people suffering from that, but not in the way that the whole world will collapse. Today we live in a burning house. The house is burning. At that time, house was not burning. Today we have big celebration going on under the roof, burning roof. And soon it will engulf, the fire will engulf the whole house. But we are ignoring it. And that's the most dangerous part of it. We are not concerned, we are not worried, we are not terrified that the house isn't burning. So I'm giving the side that the world it was the world today. And then world today is worse because of the notice that we got. It's a countdown has begun. Another one, wealth concentration. Wealth was not that much concentrated in that world at that time. Today, the wealth concentration is getting so bad. 1% of the population of the world owns 99% of the wealth of the world. 1% owning 99% of the world. So the 99% of the people own only 1% of the world, and it's getting worse. And it's a ticking time bomb. It can explode anytime. And the last one, and there's a long list what we have done wrong. The last one is a massive intrusion of artificial intelligence coming. And we are kind of celebrating its entry, but that's the most dangerous thing is happening because it will massively dislodge human being from the work. And it will continue to do that it will be speedier and speedier as we go along. Soon a human being will see they have no place to go, no place to work anymore because artificial intelligence is taken over. So we are in the direction where human beings will become sort of a garbage on this planet. They have no use for anybody because artificial intelligence has taken it over. So that's the world that we are as a pre-pandemic world, if you want to say. What pandemic has done, pandemic has stopped that economic machine. So the train, which was a fast train that we are riding to our disaster, final end, that train has been stopped. That's a good news. COVID is a bad news, but this is a good news. COVID has stopped the machine, has stopped the train, which was taking us to the death path. So I'm raising the question, now the train has stopped, it has created an opportunity for us so that we don't have to go back to the train again. We can get off the train and build another train to go another direction, not in the debt direction. This is surely is a debt direction. So we don't want to go back. So I keep saying, reminding everybody, please make a decision. No going back. We don't want to go back to the same thing. Not repeating the things that we have done, so that we can, in a matter of decades, not matter of centuries, in a matter of decades, maybe 2 decades, maybe 3 decades. That's about the time limit we got. And then we'll be over. So this is an opportunity to undo the things and create things in a different way. Unless we do that, we'll be gone. We cannot stop the global warming. Now the new president has come. He has signed the decision that he wants to join back the Paris Agreement, which is good. But the need, the urgency of it so much, even that is not enough. We have to change everything inside. All the bad things we have doing, the fossil fuel, with the plastics, with burning forest, and everything that you see, these are all symptoms of the thing that is going to happen and make an end to it. So I would say COVID has done us a favor in that sense, that now we can think and redesign and rework and make a different direction. That's where our task comes in the universities. That's where we are trying to say through the Yunus Social Business Center, explaining how do we get to that world. And we define that new world by saying it will be a world of 3 zeros. 0 net carbon emission, we have to make it, and we can do it. It's a known thing. Simply, we don't want to do that. We got used to it. So we know what the global warming is happening, and I'm contributing to it. But I don't stop. I know that it's bad, but I don't stop. We have to stop. Otherwise, your next generation will not be here. And that's why the next generation people, the teenagers, are marching on the street, calling themselves Fridays for Future, and blaming their parents that you have stolen our future. You are totally irresponsible people. Our own children accusing the parents that you are irresponsible people. You have taken away our future. And what about our grandchildren? Do they have a future? If you continue like this, they don't have a future either. And this is that close. We have to undo it so that our children feel that we have handed over a better life, better world to them than we have inherited from our parents, so that they can continue to do that. So this is the challenge. COVID gives us a challenge. This is the greatest opportunity we ever got, and we must make best use of it, because otherwise we'll not be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's an interesting thing you said, Dr. Yunus, to sort of the idea that we expect that things are going to be better today. And in fact, maybe it's a worse world than it was in the past. And so it sort of challenges this assumption about progress, right? That progress is not something we can take for granted. And I think about this in the context of technology as well, right? And so I wonder, do you see concerns about adapting microfinance for the sort of the new financial technologies that have appeared and that sort of thing? Industrial Revolution 4.0, that sort of.
Sure, I know. I'll come to the revolution later, but let me go into microcredit. That's why in the beginning, I was saying how much enthusiasm I had coming to Arkansas, trying to help people, designing this system. That system didn't exist. As soon as Bill Clinton left Arkansas, disappeared, literally disappeared. It didn't exist anymore. It didn't continue. So this is about 40 years now that since we began our work in Bangladesh and started working around the world. Everybody says it's a very good thing. Nobody says microcredit is a bad thing. Everybody says it's a good thing. You challenge the banks. You showed that it can be done. You have undone everything they have done to create a new kind of space for them, etc., etc. And they even gave me and the bank Nobel Prize for that. But it remains a footnote in the financial world. It's not a mainstream. You don't hear microcredit in the stock market. You don't hear in the financial page of your newspaper. You don't hear about that. Why? If it is so good, why isn't it in the mainstream? Because existing system cannot tolerate that. So they left it in the we have been running a Grameen program in the USA now. We started in 2008. It's about 10, 11 years now. And it works beautifully, working with the most immigrants, all 100% women. Today we have more than 140,000 women in this program in 14 cities. Unfortunately, none of the cities in the Arkansas, but there are cities in Los Angeles, San Francisco. It started in New York, so New York is a big base there, and Florida and Miami and other places. In all 14 cities, 140,000 women. And they have taken in the first 10 years over $1 billion as a loan. Startup loan is something like $500, $700, and $900. That's $100,000. And then continue to raise their amount of money as they go on. As each cycle, they can increase that. And today we are at a level after 10 years of work. Each year we are giving more than $1 billion in loan, and with perfect repayment. Repayment is over 99.5% and above over the whole period of time, even including the COVID time and everything. There are more than 50 people died in COVID infections and so on, but they haven't given up. These are mostly people who are undocumented people. So look at that. We can give loans to undocumented people, get it paid back and improve their life and cover all the cost. Still, nobody wants to touch it. It doesn't become a banking system. We don't have a banking license. So we have to rush it down to find money, to give the money to the poor people because we cannot take deposits. So this is the mismatch. We need microcredit. Everybody knows it needed, but system doesn't allow it to happen. So this is the kind of thing that we are reaching out to. And COVID has done one thing, demonstrated very, very strongly, if you have noticed it, 50% of the world population, 50% of the world population lost their income, lost their businesses, livelihoods, and livelihood versus life became a big debate in this whole COVID situation, whether you protect life or you protect livelihood. In order to protect livelihood, you have to sacrifice life because they'll be infected. So if you want to protect life, you'll be losing your livelihood. And that's what happened in a massive way. And they lost everything. They couldn't pay their rent, they couldn't have food and so on. Why? Because the financial system doesn't work for them. They are self-financed, they're self-thing. They're depending on the loan shark to carry on their little business on the roadside, daily income earners. These are the people. And they lost everything. So even then, our financial sector remains totally immune from this issue. I said, if you cannot touch this issue, if you cannot address this issue, the wealth concentration will be very happy to move on because you don't have to worry about these people. All the wealth goes to the top. If you look at the wealth concentration, if you take all the wealth of the world and create a map, like $1 a day people on the bottom, $2 a day, $3 a day, and $5 a day, $100 a day, $1,000 a day, you map them where the people are. All the people will be concentrated at the bottom because half the population of the world has less than $5.50 as daily income. So half the population are there under $5.50. Who are there for $100? Very few people. Who are there for $1,000 a day? Very skinny number of people. So if you go up, it becomes empty. This is the scenario of the people. All the people are condensed at the bottom. What is the situation of the wealth? Wealth, if you go at the $1 a day, there's no wealth. $2, $5, $10, there's no wealth. All the wealth is in the top. 99% of the wealth is way above in the map. So you superimpose with each other. People are in the bottom. Wealth is in the top. You can say that wealth is concentrated in the North Pole and the people are densely populated in the South Pole. So when will they meet? They're not meeting. These two are separating, distancing itself. When the corona came, people lost income, everything that I explained. And in the meantime, richest people in the world have made billions during the corona period. So their wealth is increasing. So this is a situation which is completely unacceptable. This is the situation that we are trying to explain at that time. So you talk about corona and you mention about the revolution. Revolution is what revolution? Revolution is about the artificial intelligence revolution. That's what you're talking about. And that is what will remove all the people from there. That will increase your bottom line. That's because you're replacing it's efficient and so on. But people will be out. So all the people we are talking about the South Pole, everybody will be in the South Pole without any work, without any income, and they will be the garbage bag of the whole world. This is what we are facing. That's what is our fourth revolution.
That's right. That's right. So this spring, we've been working with the Honors College here at the university to run a signature seminar with students where we're discussing exactly these issues, I'd like to invite one of the students from that seminar, Lauren Campbell, to come into the spotlight. And she has a question for you that's very closely related to what you were just discussing. Go, Lauren.
Hi, Dr. Yunus. Thank you so
Hi.
much for being here today. Like Dr. Hare said, my name is Lauren and I'm a part of this seminar. And my question is, in your book, A World of Three Zeros, you note that to address the problems of wealth inequality, we need to reframe the system to move away from one that is, quote, purely personal interest to a system in which both personal and collective interests, end quote, are emphasized. How do we go about changing this mindset in cultures, particularly in the US?
Yes, everywhere. So not only in the US, everywhere. You see, those concepts that what is a business, what is the goal of a business, all these are taught in schools. You start from your elementary schools and you go down the line, you keep learning all these things. And in the meantime, your brain is kind of infected with all these ideas that this is what the business is, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And when you finish school, you have to have a job and get ready for a job. If you don't get a job, you are a useless person. You are absolutely a unsuccessful person. You even fail to get a job. These are all wrong ideas completely. So you can build up yourself with the wrong ideas. And they say, suppose we teach the students as they come in, as you grow up, you can be an entrepreneur. Human beings are born as entrepreneurs. So you are an entrepreneur. Think how to become an entrepreneur. We'll teach you during our courses, during our thing, how to become a successful entrepreneur. What are the elements of becoming successful? Because that's what you're doing. Not today, universities, colleges, schools are teaching how to become a job seeker, how to make sure you're a job-ready person. As soon as you come out of school, you get a job. And the better performance, better job, better company and better job and so on. So that's again a wrong direction. I'm not trying to be a job seeker. I'm trying to be an entrepreneur. But nobody says that you can be an entrepreneur. So our start is wrong. I said all human beings are packed with unlimited creative capacity. That's the nature of a human being. Whether a child is born on the street or a child is born in the palace of a king. Say both child have the same creative power. But the circumstances will make it completely different. One becomes a prince and then becomes a strict thief or a pickpocket or whatever you do, crime, drugs, and so on, because that's how you grew up. So this is the difference. So how to make sure that you discover yourself, your own worth. And that's what the schooling system, education system is supposed to be. So turning you into the direction that you have that make it happen. Economists told us that all human beings are driven by self-interest. That's the point you raised from my book. I said, who said so? Why all human beings has to be driven by self-interest? What happened to the common interest? Who looks after the common interest? All human beings, I said, driven by both interests, self-interest and common interest, global interest. And I want to be participant of it. But since economists thought about only self-interest, they created a business of self-interest. How to make yourself rich. They have no other concern, just to make yourself rich. How to make, and becoming rich is the success. That's the definition of their success. I said, why? This is, again, you are turning away a human being from the right path. All you have to do is say, no, you have the self-interest, also the common interest. You have a business to self-interest. If you want to make yourself rich, you follow that. But if you have also want to do things to solve the problem of environment, problem of water, problem of healthcare, problem, all the problems that we know, you can create a business. And that's the kind of business we created. We call it social business. Microcredit was born as a social business. It remains as a social business. We don't want to make money out of microcredit. And the people who are now very active in the microcredit world, they are, again, bankers who want to make money out of it. And we turn into, again, a loan sharking path, payday lending kind of path, not the social business path. So I said, why don't you tell young people that you have both? Decide what you want. I'm not imposing anything. I'm just giving an option. Everybody should have an option. That's what we do. Option is whether I do this or I do that, whether I do money-making business or I do social business to solve problems, or I do both. I have a money-making business. Also, at the same time, I have a social business. Nothing wrong with it. I'm expressing myself. And the moment you introduce that idea, suddenly work becomes completely different one. And that we can address all the problems we created now start solving, because we don't want to pollute the world, make this an unlivable environment. We want to protect them, because that's our social business. We create social business to keep the forest, build forest rather than burn forest. We burn forest because we have to grow soybean, because we have to grow cattle, because we have to sell steaks. And see, this is the cycle here. So we are not protecting anything, we are destroying things. So this is the destruction part. So this is what we have to do, how to start this process of thinking, learning. You said, how do we do that? Start in the same. That's why the Yunus Social Business Center that you created in your university is important. That this is the one who will be explaining what are the other kind of things that you can think about. It's up to you to judge. Nobody's saying that you have to follow this path. This is not a religion. It's a kind of thinking process. You think this, which one is good for you? And many young people are coming forward, creating those social businesses, and an enormous amount of creativity is coming out of it. So this is how the turning point is. You have to first say that we are at a risk of our life. This system will be killing us, destroying us. We have to build a new civilization. This old civilization is up for destruction. It will explode itself. It will destroy itself. So before it destroys itself and destroys us, we have to build a new civilization. That's the civilization which will start with the socialist businesses and other things, that you want to build things rather than destroy things, those ideas. And your values will be different in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. I think we have time for one more student. I'd like to ask Amy McCampbell to come up. Amy is a student in our International and Global Studies program like Lauren. She's also a participant in our Global Social Change Seminar. Amy, you have a question for Dr. Yunus.
Yes, absolutely. Good morning and good evening.
Okay.
Thank you very much
Hello,
for joining us
good
on
evening,
this
good morning. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You're welcome. I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the future of the neoliberal global system? And what do you think we can do to restore trust in this global economic system?
Well, I was just trying to see what happens to the new liberal economics that we've been saying. They have pushed us into the direction that we don't have a future left. And I said they have created us as the most endangered species on this planet right now. That's where we are. We are not sure whether our children will have a future. Even they are saying you have stolen our future. I'm not saying that. I'm sure in Arkansas there are some street demonstration by the teenagers saying that you have stolen our future, give back the future. We want to change the world, like Greta Thunberg and others started this initiative, and it's now a global phenomenon. They're saying it, but we don't want to listen because it's not convenient for us to listen. So, and we said, oh, we are fine. I got a job and I have a retirement plan and everything is taken care of. I don't have to worry about it. So that is the person driven by self-interest. All I see myself. I said, what I'm trying to do, I try to explain to young people. I said, what the economist has fitted us with the glasses with only self-vision. We only see with the glasses myself, nothing else. And I'm making it a bifocal glass. I'm not taking away the other vision. Along with the self-vision, I give you the global vision. So it's a bifocal glass. I see myself, or also I see the world. So pick it up, which glass you want. You want just a self-vision glass? Then you see yourself, you don't see the rest of the world. So I said, at least you can see, you decide what you want to do with the world. But nothing wrong with seeing it. Why do you want to be blind? So put on this bifocal glass, self-vision and the global vision. Then see what you can do as a human being. You have so much capacity, so much creativity packed into yourself. You can change this world. You don't like it, what you see, then change it. Because God is not going to come and change it for you, or government is not going to come and change it for you. You have to change it. And you have the capacity to change the entire world as an individual. World is not changed by all the people suddenly waking up and doing it. One person makes this, raise the voice and say, look, this is what you have to do. And everybody say, hey, this is right. How come we didn't see it before? And then you demonstrate it and people start following it and so on. And I have a personal experience. When I started in Bangladesh with $27, starting it in one village, I had no idea that this is going to be $100. This is going to be $1,000. This is going to be nationwide. This is going to spark on the, while 1980, we started as a bank. We became in 76, we became Grameen Bank. we started Grameen program. We became a formal bank with the government approval and everything. We became a formal bank in 1983. And guess what? I was in Arkansas in 1986. See how quickly it changed? Just a tiny little $27. It's such a power of idea, changes everything. Now it's a global phenomenon. You go anywhere in the world, every single country has some tiny little microcredit program. And I'm regretting that financial institution has not adopted it. It's all NGOs are doing that because the law doesn't allow you to do that. Banking law doesn't allow. So change the law. If you think it's right, why don't you change the law? Allow them to become a bank. They're not asking for money. They're not asking for your favor, just a permission to operate. That's all we want, but they don't give it. This is the problem that we are facing. So those are the kind of things you have to change your ideas, make things happen so that you have to dream about a new world. Unless you dream about the world, it will never happen. That imagination is the power. So we have to imagine we can create the world, new world, not getting out of this world. Because this world, we have to come to the conclusion, we don't want to live in this world. We don't want to leave our children to this world. What kind of parents we are, that we leave this world to them and for them to suffer and die in this planet? Or we want to protect them. As a protector, we will be building a new world. And that's, we have to define that new world and go for it. And in a matter of desperation, not, okay, we'll do it gradually, don't rush us. And that's the point. People are still talking about the environment, saying, don't rush us, we'll do it in our leisure. There is no leisure, this house is burning. It will be turned into ash very soon. We have very few little time left. Scientists are saying that 1.5 degrees Celsius, maybe one more decade, by 2030 will be 1.5 degrees Celsius. And if you push your luck very hard, you can get up to the 2 degrees Celsius and finish. After that, it's not a livable planet anymore. And between this time, it will become more and more difficult. But it's still, people survive, but after that, it's a point of no return. Even if you try, you cannot undo the thing. So when we have this window of opportunity, why don't we take this window of opportunity? In desperation, say we must do it fast and do it. We must do it in order to show that you as a human being, we have the power to change everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is such timely advice, Dr. Yunus. We teach our students to be self-critical about the system, to act on the moment, and your words are very inspiring. I know that your time is limited this morning or this evening, and so I want to say a word of thanks for participating today and for these outstanding answers to our questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. And great to be in Arkansas. Thanks a lot. Say hello to Arkansas.
Dr. Yunus, for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you, Dr. Yunus.
Bye-bye.
All right. As you all know, it's quite late in Bangladesh, and so we think that Professor Yunus is going to take his rest for the evening. We are going to continue on with the series this morning. We're pleased to now have Dr. Virgilio Garcia-Contreras moderate a conversation with Darrin Williams. I'll hand it over to Dr. Contreras.
Thank you, Meredith. We're going to follow a similar format for our conversation with Mr. Williams. So I guess, Mr. Williams, we can start with any comments or reflections you may have on what Dr. Yunus just shared with us.
Well, Dr. Contreras, first of all, thank you for arranging this for Dr. Yunus. I could listen to him all day. I'd much rather hear him than me. What powerful words, so inspiring, so challenging to us. Wow, she said so many things that are interest and positive and inspiring. I guess I would maybe think about his challenge for us to think more and more about global warming and about the planet we live on. Because that's something that we at Southern, we're spending a lot more time thinking about. In fact, we are part of an organization called the Global Alliance for Banking on Values. And I think your students may like to know a little bit about GABB, since this is really about your Global Partners Program. GABB is a network of banking leaders around the world that really want to use finance to deliver sustainable economic, social, and environmental change. So we want to finance things that the changes we want to see in the world. And so we have members on every continent except for Antarctica. And several of our members actually are microfinance organizations. But Southern Bancorp has been a part of the GABB now for going on 6 or 7 years. And I'm just really, I'm impressed with what I see around the world happening in the financial space with regard to global warming. And it's really our relationship around the world and the encouragement by particularly our European colleagues, even more so, to think more and more about the environment that's really pushing Southern to thinking more and more about our role in protecting the environment that we live in. So we are clearly a double bottom line company. We focus clearly on providing a societal good, a social good, lifting people out of poverty, providing access to capital, credit, responsible services. And we clearly focus on doing that in a sustainable way, profitable way. We're beginning now to think and focus much, much more on our impact on the environment. What's our responsibility as a financial institution to the environment? And so we have made a goal, our board has made a goal for 2021 to reduce our own carbon footprint with the services that we use, the things we do by 10%. And this year we're going to develop a plan developing a plan to really measure the carbon footprint of our loan portfolio for things that we finance. And we want to finance those things that have a much better benefit on the environment. And we're really driven there because of our membership in the Global Alliance or GABV, which is such a powerful organization. So I guess that really stuck with me because that's something that we are focusing on right now. And I guess I'd like to also maybe point out, just to clarify a little bit about Southern and Dr. Yunus's role with the Southern Good Faith Fund. So the Southern Good Faith Fund, when Southern was started back in the mid-1980s by all those folks, including the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation, Governor Clinton, the Walton Family Foundation had a part of that. A number of folks had a part in that. We were started as a multi-entity organization. So there was the bank holding company, Southern Development Bank Corporation, and there were several other portions, other entities that made up Southern. The Southern Good Faith Fund was just one of those entities, and it was that entity that attempted to mirror and use a lot of the principles of microfinance that we used to start that. It really was Southern Bancorp itself really was much more modeled after Shore Bank. And Dr. Yunus talked about Shore Bank. Ron Grzinski and Mary Houghton and others who started Shore Bank came to Arkansas to really help start that organization. And Dr. Contreras, if it's possible, I invited two of my friends who were there at the founding of Southern Bancorp, Jan Piercy and George Surgeon. They came to Arkansas, helped to start Southern Bancorp operation from Shore Bank. And I've asked Jan, maybe she might comment a little about how Southern was founded and maybe the role that microfinance and Dr. Yunus played really in helping to think about how we think about Southern Good Faith Fund. But that was just one of many entities that made up Southern Development Bank Corporation. So I'll ask Jan to come off mute, and I'll ask George, maybe they might have a few comments as well. That's okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, George, for being here today.
Thank you.
Let's see. Oh, I'm unmuted. It's wonderful to be here. Really exciting to see the number of students. And I look forward to this conversation very much. Darrin is being too modest because he, in fact, has been an extraordinary leader. And right now, in fact, the Harvard Business School is developing a case study on Southern Bank Corporation and the challenges it faces to protect mission while expanding to increase its impact. And it will, following from what Dr. Yunus said, may be interesting to note, this will be the first time that this case study will be taught not in the second-year electives, but as part of the core required curriculum in the Harvard Business School. I believe there is progress. It is changing. I think in some ways, this term of social business, I sometimes worry, let's not get ourselves categorized into a lane because all business has social responsibility, as was recognized this year by the National Association of Business. So we're changing. And George was actually the first president of Southern Bank Corporation in Arkansas. So I think George was there. I was there in the first stages, raising the capital for Southern, but then I joined the Clinton administration. So I lost track for a while and then just had the chance to rejoin in Southern's most recent capital raise.
Well, as usual, Jan and Darrin are being incredibly and overly modest about their accomplishments and their contributions. And while I was the first president and CEO of Southern Bank Corporation, it was a $100 million company back then, and Darrin's got it up to $1.8 billion. So it's a little bit different organization now than it was back in the day. But what I've really appreciated in contacting or getting to know Darrin and his team at Southern is how much they're keeping the initial mission of the organization going. The mission focused on people at the bottom of the pyramid, so to speak, trying to create economic development that benefits people from low and moderate income communities. As Jan mentioned, the Good Faith Fund that Professor Yunus was so involved in creating was modeled after the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh. In fact, our executive director actually spent 3 months in Bangladesh working in Grameen Bank, trying to figure out how can I transfer this technology, which is basically what it was, to rural Arkansas. And even though we didn't maintain the group lending model that Professor Yunus pioneered at Grameen, we did keep that going for a long period of time. We made several hundred loans to micro entrepreneurs. And two of the statistics that I'm really still excited about, even though it was 25 years ago, are that almost all the loans that we made were to African American entrepreneurs. I'd say over 90% out of those 200 to 300 loans, and 31% went to entrepreneurs who were below the poverty level. So I'm not talking about entrepreneurs who are moderate income or low income, but they're actually below the poverty level. And it's really good to see that Southern Bancorp, in its current incarnation, is carrying on that fine work. Now, the Good Faith Fund made 200 or 300 micro loans over a period of about 6 to 8 years before it went into more direct micro lending. And now at Southern Bancorp, what was the current number for 2020? You did like 1,100 loans under $1,000. You know, for those of you who are taking courses in the business school, you know, banks just can't do that. I mean, it economically just does not make sense for a bank to do that. But Southern Bancorp continues to go down the path. So thanks.
Thank you, Jan.
Just
Jan.
one thing I wanted to add for the students. Julia Vendacious, who was the first person working in the Good Faith Fund in Arkansas, later in President Clinton's administration as president, was selected as a White House Fellow. And I just want to flag that because I hope all of you know about the White House Fellows Program and will consider that as you continue your own careers. It's a remarkable program. And it's of note that that experience that she had in Arkansas was regarded as so valuable that it contributed to her selection as a White House Fellow.
Dr. Contreras, thank you for allowing me to bring my friends Jan and George, and I think you can see why I wanted to have them to say a few words, because they were really contemporaneous with the work that we did starting Southern, back in the mid-1980s, and have a unique perspective.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here. Yes, what a nice surprise. We appreciate your presence and your comments. And certainly, actually, one of the questions that I had was touching on the history of Bancorp. So I guess we can move on to the next question. And I would like to invite Madison Holden with the net impact graduate net impact chapter of the university and an MBA student, to post her question. Madison.
Hi. Yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Williams, for sharing your time with us today. It's incredible to meet you virtually. My name is Madison. I'm an MBA student here at the university and also the president of the University of Arkansas Graduate Net Impact chapter. So our chapter is looking at making our impact by assisting local companies in obtaining their B Corp certifications. And so I wanted to ask, since you've led Southern Bancorp to obtain the B Corp certification, do you have any advice for other businesses, regardless of their size, who aim and wish to get this certification for their organization? And also, were there any unforeseen pitfalls you found that others could avoid, or maybe something you didn't know about this process when starting out?
Madison, thank you for that question. Yeah, in 2019, Southern obtained its B Corp certification from B Labs that certifies. We went through the very complicated, complex, detailed B impact assessment, which is an onerous process, but well worth it. But I think for us, we actually made the decision to become a public benefit corporation, which is a legal designation, before we became a B Corp. It was important for us really for two reasons. One, primarily for legal protection. So prior to becoming CEO of Southern, I spent most of my time suing banks and publicly traded companies as a securities class action attorney for shareholder derivative litigation. And those are lawsuits against the board of directors for not fulfilling their obligation. Of course, we think of corporations existing to maximize profits. A public benefit corporation protects the officer directors of the company for having a much larger view of the role of its corporation. So it's not just about profit maximization, it's also about the public benefit. So it protects the board and its leadership from making decisions that are not just financial, but also non-financial, and think about the broader stakeholder group. So when we think about our work, it's not just about making profits, it's also about making a difference. And our stakeholders include, of course, our customers and our shareholders, but also the communities and our employees. And so it was important for us to first become a legal public benefit corporation. And then the B Corp designation really is a good housekeeping seal of approval. So in the United States, there are about 15 banks that are certified as B Corps. These are, again, banks that focus on a larger stakeholder definition other than just profit maximization, but also about making a positive difference. And so I'm not sure that I would have any real advice other than, it is an onerous process. B Labs will work with you through that process. It's not a rubber stamp. I mean, you really have to work hard to get that. It's really about how you think about your broad stakeholder group, and it's also about how your legal structure and in making sure that your benefit purposes are embedded in your governance principles. And so it is again an onerous process, but I think well worth it. And for us, there are a number of reasons. Clearly, marketing is one reason. We do it because we want to signify to the world that we are about profits and purpose really drives our work. And we often talk about our work here at Southern with a bicycle approach. So the front wheel of our bicycle is our mission wheel. It's our purpose wheel. It drives and guides and directs us. The back wheel is our margin wheel, and it powers it and sustains us. And so we say no margin, no mission, but clearly mission is our primary goal. And that B Corp stamp of approval signifies to the world that that's who we are. I'll tell you the other thing in closing, what it's been positive for. It's allowed us to attract talent for people, young people like yourself, who want to be involved in a corporation that really thinks about doing good as well as doing well. So again, it's an honest process. I encourage anyone to do it, but it's not for the faint of heart. It's a detailed process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And allow me to continue with another of our MBA students, Meredith, who also wants to pose a question. Meredith?
Hi, I first just want to say thank you so much for speaking with us today. So my question, while researching these microcredit initiatives before this event, I found that there's definitely a lot of varying opinions out there on the impact of these initiatives in alleviating poverty. And so as the leader of Southern Bancorp, what is your assessment on the impact of these initiatives in our community?
Mayor, thanks for that question. Well, I think undoubtedly around the world, particularly in developing countries, the microcredit programs continue to lift people out of poverty. And I think they've had a tremendous impact. George highlighted that our bank, Southern Bancorp, while we don't run the Southern Good Faith Fund and the group lending model, we still provide a fair amount of what I would call microcredit when you think about a $1.8 billion institution. So in 2020, 47% of our 7,000 plus loans were for less than $10,000, and over 1,400 of our loans were less than $1,000. And so, again, that's not a profitable line of business for a bank, but that's what's needed in the markets that we serve. And as we said, we serve one of the most persistently impoverished communities of all the United States, the Arkansas Mississippi Delta. And those small micro loans that we provide to people, to individuals, both consumer and business, sometimes really is a difference from making their business work or helping them to escape a tough situation. And so I think that around the world in developing countries, the microcredit concepts have taken hold much more than in the United States for a lot of reasons. And just a couple of things is that, one, the microcredit concept that you see at Grameen Bank really is based on this concept of group lending, and you build your peer groups, and those peer groups really make underwriting decisions. In a place like Bangladesh, where there's scale and just the number of people and the number of microcredit institutions, it allows for that to happen much better than in a place like Arkansas Delta, where it's dense, it's much more sparsely populated, and these culturally, there's not the ties that really bind these lending circles together. And so, from a cultural standpoint, I know they've really taken off, like in the United States, like they have in other countries. And then I will say that in the United States, we have a functional safety net in America. So the choice for many impoverished people in America, it's not becoming an entrepreneur, becoming self-employed. The functional safety net that we have provides, you can question whether it's enough, but it provides some basis of living that may be even more than what you would get from a microcredit loan. And so that functional safety net probably, which is not available in developing countries, really probably is one thing that cuts against the microcredit program working in the United States. I will say this, that the Southern Good Faith Fund, again, that was modeled after Grameen Bank, its transition really from microcredit. Now, Southern Bancorp Community Partners, which is one of the three entities that make up Southern Development Bank Corporation. So now we have Southern Bancorp Inc., the bank holding company, Southern Bancorp Bank, and Southern Bancorp Community Partners. We're really a three-legged stool, a three-entity company. Southern Bancorp Community Partners still does a lot of the work, the policy work that Southern Good Faith Fund did. Southern Good Faith Fund really transitioned away from kind of the microcredit lending and more about policy initiatives that will help lift poor people from poverty. And I want to give you one example, that one thing we're working on right now in the state of Arkansas that could have a huge impact on lifting people out of poverty. So in the United States, you do have this functional safety net program. And in Arkansas, if you receive TANF dollars, Target Assistance for Needy Families, it's a federal program that runs through the state. That's really seen as assistance with food or assistance with housing if you're low wealth. In the state of Arkansas, if a person has more than $2,250 in assets, they're not eligible for the safety net program. Now, in 35 states across the country, that asset limit has been removed. You think about it, if you can have more than $2,250 in assets, you can really never lift yourself out of poverty. And what it really looks like, Meredith, is that it's often a single mom with several children, and that assistance helps her to feed and to clothe and to house her children. And without that safety net, she may not be able to do that. And so she has to choose between saving money and trying to remove herself from poverty, or having this program, because the Department of Human Services, who administers the program, they actually have people whose job is to check to see if you have $2,251, so they can kick you off the program, which makes no sense. We are trying right now in its current session of the General Assembly, we're trying to ask the General Assembly to remove those limits altogether. The 35 states that have removed those limits have not seen a flood or a crowd of their program. In fact, they've seen a 26% reduction in people churning on and off the program. So that's just one example of things we're working on here in the United States, and how policy really can help drive poverty alleviation, even more so now than this kind of the microcredit, at least in the United States.
Thank you. That's such an important observation, and the power of this kind of initiative in our state to not only help people get out of this cycle of poverty, but the empowerment that happens along the way in the community, the effect that it has on the community is incredible. So thank you for that. Now I want to invite Professor Kim Patron at the Walton College of Business. She also has a question. Kim.
Hello, thank you so much for including me. I'm glad to be with the students and asking the questions. Over the summer, I heard about Netflix planning to move 100 million in deposits to banks serving Black communities to help increase lending capacity. At the time, a Netflix statement said, "We hope to inspire other large companies to do the same with their cash deposits." And a New York Times article characterized this as fighting racial inequality through routine commerce. I like that they point out that the idea for this actually came from somebody in HR. It was not somebody with finance at Netflix. Is this just a single incident, or are you optimistic or pessimistic about future activities from these much larger corporations?
Professor, let me, first of all, thanks for that question. I am extremely optimistic. 2020, again, it was an unprecedented year. And when I think about what it meant for Southern, I think about really the world, particularly how it impacts Southern, two viruses, right? COVID-19, which greatly impacted the work that we do, and then just the virus of racism that was sparked by the world witnessing the death of George Floyd. Those two occurrences have had a significant impact on the work that we do in ways that may not be obvious. So what the virus has done, it has really highlighted the structural inequalities in this country. Black and brown people are being disproportionately more impacted by COVID, and poor communities are going to suffer the long-term impact of COVID-19 more so than more affluent areas. In fact, the Sergo Ventures Foundation, they have mapped the world really, and they mapped the United States and talk in what they call the COVID Vulnerability Index, looking at how the long-term impacts of COVID-19 on communities. And it's not just their health outcomes, it's education, it's income. And they mapped it on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most seriously impacted long-term. Unfortunately, the state of Arkansas was a 9. And many of the communities that we serve in the Arkansas Mississippi Delta were either 8 or 9. And so we anticipate seeing these long-term impacts. And of course, what you saw happening with George Floyd is just the injustice from a criminal justice standpoint is really just more of the same of how people of color have been marginalized and disenfranchised. All that's happened, and it's kind of the perfect storm. And what you see now is people paying much more attention to institutions like Southern Bank Corporation, CDFI. So we are, again, a community development financial institution. When Bill Clinton becomes President Clinton, he takes the model of Shore Bank, of Southern, and creates at the Department of Treasury a fund called the Community Development Financial Institution Fund. And this is a public-private partnership. So this fund takes our tax dollars and supports organizations, banks, loan funds, credit unions, venture funds like Southern. And in return, 60% of our activity must take place in low and moderate income census tracts. So I say all that to say I'm optimistic because now, in addition to the CDFI fund having been given additional resources to support institutions like us, now you're seeing corporate America. Netflix is just one example. You're seeing corporate America step up and say, we want to help to advance racial equity and social justice. And I'm really proud of the work of the Business Roundtable, the 200 largest businesses in America, led by CEO Doug McMillon of Walmart, who chairs the Business Roundtable. And And he's leading that effort, and it's a real effort. They're really making a difference. And so if you look at the Business Roundtable, what they've said about their efforts to advance racial equity and social justice, they have 6 pillars of things they're working on in their businesses. And so these businesses are taking this serious. For example, Bank of America, late last year, made an equity investment in Southern Bancorp. Now Bank of America is a shareholder of our bank, a multi-million-dollar investment. Prior to that, Bank of America made charitable contributions. Bank of America made program-related investments, or made loans to loan funds, who then we in return loan that money and made the spread. They had not gone all in and become a partner with CDFIs or with minority depository institutions. Now you're seeing businesses step up in big ways, and really, really excited and optimistic about how that might continue. Even right now, most banks are not necessarily looking for deposits. We're flush with cash, but I will say, even not searching out deposits, Southern, in our little personal world, we've received over $25 million in deposits from corporations that choose to bank with us because we're Black led, because of the work that we do and the people we support. So it's my hope that this is not marketing. It's my hope this is sustainable, and this will last for the long run. And I've had the pleasure of having conversations with Doug McMillan, also with Brian Monahan from Bank of America, and they are serious about this. This is not a fly-by-night activity for them. They are rooted and grounded in making this happen. And so I'm cautiously optimistic that this will actually have a significant impact. And then philanthropy has always been there with banks like ours. I'm really impressed with the work of philanthropy, but I want to highlight Mackenzie Scott and what she has done. And Southern was the recipient of a $2 million unrestricted grant from Mackenzie Scott, and she's really showing to the philanthropic community how to support nonprofits without putting restrictions on those dollars, saying, you know how to do your work, you do it better than anyone else. Here's unrestricted $2 million. You do what you do best. And so I am optimistic.
Thank you very much, Darrin. Thank you, Kim, for your question, for being here today. Actually, I think this is also a very important point. Often, due to the size of the loans here in America, we tend to think, that micro lending is not as impactful as it could be in other parts of the world. But when you think about micro lending as the possibility of actually including great segments of the population that would not otherwise be included in the financial system to access to these credit opportunities, then microlending can start looking at a very different tool to even the plane and foster the diversity and inclusion that many of our communities so desperately need. So kudos to your work, and thank you for those observations, Mr. Williams. Let's move on with one of my dear colleagues here at the University of Arkansas, Dr. Raj Rao, who also wanted to post a question. He's the director of the biomedical engineer program. And Raj, thank you for joining us. I know you have a question for Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Rogelio. And again, thank you, Mr. Williams, for joining us this morning. A lot has been spoken about the global challenge related to the health of the planet that we reside in. It's clearly evident that the pandemic has shown us that we currently have a lot of key global and local challenges that impact societies as it relates to human health. I was wondering about what do you see as a specific role of microfinance to promote healthcare innovations? Again, we are really focused on developing programs where we train humanistic engineers who can create solutions with empathy. So I was wondering, in the context of microfinance, what do you see the specific role to promote healthcare innovations with a focus on reducing poverty-driven healthcare costs?
Well, thank you for that question. So, again, our role, our work in microfinance here at Southern really is, it's much different than what you see happening in Grameen Bank. And so we really think of our work as development finance professionals, in a number of fronts. And so when we think about our wanting to finance the change that we want to see in the world, of course, in many poverty-stricken communities like the Arkansas Mississippi Delta, when there's a lack of economic opportunity, there are also then clearly a lack of probably educational opportunities. There are also poor healthcare opportunities and poor healthcare outcomes. And unfortunately, that's what we see. And so we try to utilize the tools, not so much microfinance, we try to utilize the tools that we have. And there are a number of tools that are at the disposal of a CDFI bank, including access to new market tax credit programs, which is a program we use, access to other programs throughout the chain of programs that the CDFI fund provides. And so we've tried to use those things again to finance a change that we want to see in the world. And I'm thinking of, for example, in Helena, Arkansas, Phillips County, Arkansas, and we helped years ago to finance a healthcare facility. I'm also thinking about in this most recent CARES Act, one of the popular programs to really keep people working was the Paycheck Protection Program, and that it got a lot of attention. And that's where basically businesses could take forgivable loans to keep their employers on the payroll. And I'm thinking about a small healthcare clinic in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and we were able to make just a several $1,000 paycheck protection forgivable loan to that healthcare clinic. That healthcare clinic was able to stay open and then to provide and it is the primary healthcare facility for many people in this town of about 9,000, 10,000 people. And so we, again, as development finance professionals, want to finance the positive things we want to see in the world. And so not as much as microcredit, but using credit, using access to capital, particularly for those who often don't have access to traditional capital and credit. What's happening in America is that larger banks are abandoning rural communities and low wealth communities. So 20 years ago, there were 15,000 banks in America. Today, they're less than 4,700. Where you've seen them disappear are in rural, low wealth communities, urban low wealth communities. So if in 16 of the markets we serve, there's only one other traditional financial institution. In 6 of the markets we serve, we're the only bank in town. And the further a business or a person moves away from traditional sources of capital and credit, the more costly that becomes for them. And so just our presence in these communities not only helps to lift economically, but also trickles down to education, to healthcare, and to other things. And unfortunately, what you see when you see traditional financial institutions leaving these communities, what's being replaced are alternative, often predatory, high-cost financial providers, which continue to further strip wealth from families, taking dollars from families that can be used for other things, including access to healthcare. So that's how I guess I would respond to that.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Thank you, Raj, for being here today. We have had some of our audience members posting things here on the chat, and I'm just gonna refer to one message that we just got from Marta Londagin from Startup Junkie, referring to the fact that the Northwest Arkansas Kiva Hub is going to volunteer precisely to help with the Circles chapter that you just mentioned. I will be happy to post that on the chat at the end of the session for anyone interested. We also have some questions here that refer to let me find it, to some idea that has been floating around in general with many other questions that we have received. This is from Aaron Moore, who is an accounting student, a senior at the accounting department. He says that across the country, consumer debt has risen dramatically as a result of high unemployment rates, and therefore delinquent mortgages increase, right, very, very substantially, particularly in FHA and other federal programs. From a risk management perspective, how do you approach high delinquencies in microlending?
Yeah, so what we've experienced at Southern, people often assume that because we're lending money in some of the most impoverished communities of all the United States, that we have a high loan loss or high amount of really credit challenges. The actual opposite is true. We don't experience a significant number of credit losses or delinquencies. In fact, on a more than $1 billion portfolio, less than 1% of our portfolio right now is in any type of delinquency. We just don't see those losses. And here is where I do think culture makes a difference in the work that we do. So we are at the very heart a relationship lender. So the loan officers that work for Southern, they live in the communities where they lend money. They go to school and church, and their children play together with the folks they're lending money to. And so they have a deep understanding of a person's ability to repay and their willingness to repay. Those are two things you think about when you're making a loan, right? Someone's ability to repay and their willingness to repay. And what we see in very small rural communities that we serve is that not paying your debt really is a mark on your family, right? It's a mark on you. It becomes known throughout the community. So we find our borrowers will really move heaven and earth to pay that loan. And then our lenders will work with them. And that's part of being a community development lender, is that we work with them to structure the loan on the front end to be able to be one that they can pay back. And so with the flexibility of a regulated, $1.8 billion bank and a less than regulated nonprofit lender, sometimes they participate in loans together and are able to provide flexibility for borrowers where traditional banks may not be able to do that. So as a CDFI, having both a for-profit and a nonprofit lender, we have tools that allow us to really structure the loans in a way that really, I think, provides a win-win for borrowers being able to pay those loans back. So we just have not experienced those significant delinquencies or loan losses. And if I were close to wood, I'd knock on wood, because obviously, asset quality is the quickest way a financial institution can get in trouble. But right now, and at least since I've been here, that's really, and I think that's a testament to the hard work that we do and the detailed nature of how we really become intimate with our borrowers and understand the challenges they face and structure loans in a way to allow them to really make the loan payments and make it work for them.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I think, well, time flies. We're arriving to the end of our conversation, and I just want to voice one last question that has been also shared here in the chat for the moderator. That also refers to actually the last question that I wanted to post. We have a variety of majors represented by the students attending this event. Do you have any advice for students interested in having an impact on our community? This has been, this is a question that has also been posted here once and again. How can an individual help? What can we do to help you advance your mission and shifting banking practices to host deposits in their banks and this kind of thing? What can students do in particular to help Southern Bancorp and in general to be involved in the effort to create a better world, a better community?
Well, thank you for that question. That's like a really great assist for us. What can you do to help Southern Bancorp? Thank you. You can bank with us. You can become a customer of Southern. That's the first thing I would say. I would also say, so particularly for the graduate students, Southern runs a graduate fellowship program. In fact, we just had a graduate fellow leave us. It's a 2-year fellowship program where we take students, graduate level students who finish graduate school who are interested in development finance, and we create a fellowship that really is tailored to their interest. And so our most recent fellow, James Owen, who just left us, went to Hendrix College, went to UNC, and got a master's in public policy. And in this graduate fellowship, you come in, and for a period of time, you rotate throughout all of Southern. So you do a little of everything. But then we agree upon a project that you will complete that will be impactful for Southern as well as for you. James's project actually was around our efforts to reduce our carbon footprint. So he spent a significant amount of time, and he actually built the strategic plan that we have adopted to reduce our carbon footprint by 10% in 2020, and then more as we go forward. So we have a graduate level fellowship program for students who are really interested in development finance. We'd love to have some of your students. But then I think what's been said today is to think globally and act locally, right? So there's so much one person can do. To the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world. So start with one person. There are a lot of ways that you can make a difference. And so again, I appreciate the invitation to be here. Appreciate the invitation to talk about Southern Bancorp. If you're lucky and fortunate enough to really work in an area that you're passionate about, like I get to do every day, it doesn't feel like a job. My day job lines very closely with my life's mission. And so I just hope for all of your students that are part of this Global Changemakers program, you also find an opportunity to be able to work in a field that you're passionate, because it never feels like work if you do.
Thank you so very much. Those are elegant and eloquent remarks. Appreciate it. And I certainly feel that connection with you. I feel also the same way, fortunate enough to do that. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone. Meredith, do you want to help us close this event? And I know you have some announcements to make.
Yes, and also I think we want to thank and spotlight some of those who were really instrumental in organizing this event. So Olga doesn't know that I just spotlighted her, but Olga was very, very instrumental in putting together this event. And so we are so appreciative of her, and as well as the entire Graduate Net Impact chapter, MBA student Liz Luscondo, who was also very instrumental, Assistant MBA Director Lindsay Steigermuck, and Mr. Shabir Ahmad at the Yunus Center, and Kimberly Roth at Southern Bancorp for joining us. We're also truly honored that Jan Piercy and George Surgeon joined us today. So thank you. As Rogelio said, this was an incredible event, and we're so proud that we were able to organize it. Additionally, we want to invite our audience to register for our next event and stay involved, as similar to the last question that was posed to Darrin. So the Arkansas Global Changemakers Initiative and Net Impact will host the first Global Changemakers Book Club meeting on February 18th in the format of a conversation with Dr. Rianne Eisler, the author of The Real Wealth of Nations, Creating a Caring Economics. So Olga is going to post the link in the chat so that everyone can register for that. Additionally, for students who feel inspired to get involved, we have both undergraduate and graduate Net Impact chapters here at the university. As you're leaving, I'm going to put up a slide that will have the QR codes for the group meets for these two chapters so that students can get involved. Also, several of our Net Impact officers and advisors will stick around at the end of the meeting to just answer any questions if anyone wants to stay on. Back over to you, Rogelio, for final words.
Thank you, Meredith. Well, I just want to thank our speakers today. Dr. Yunus, who, as you can imagine, is a very, very busy man. It was really difficult to find a time that would coordinate with everyone, but we were fortunate enough to have him speaking today. And Mr. Darrin Williams, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you here and taking the time to talk to our students and inspire our audience in this field, in the idea that we can actually create a prosperous economy while taking care of our community and our environment. So thank you so much for that. And I join Meredith in thanking Olga and everyone else that made this event possible, including the tech support that helped us with all this, Mr. Duncan. And of course, my dear friend, Meredith Adkins, who has been incredibly supportive, and a lot of the things that happened today were thanks to Meredith. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. I hope you had a great weekend, a great day, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.